Want to know why? Ask how. Howard the Humongous. Okay. The presidential race is heating up. Bernie Sanders so far is drawing the biggest crowds. Bernie Sanders has a dynamite stump speech, but there is something missing from this presidential election with its 20 candidates. What? A vision. A nation that looks up goes up. A nation that looks down goes down. A candidate to inspire us has to have a vision not just of clobbering the upper class, clobbering the top 1% of the 1%, the billionaire class, as Bernie Sanders puts it, in a class war, and not just clobbering the lower and middle classes, which is what the super rich have been doing since approximately 1964, ever since they started what's called movement conservatism with Bill Buckley, and then since the 1980s when Ronald Reagan took power. Yes, the super rich have been clobbering the lower and middle classes, stealing more and more of the wealth of this country. That has to end. But a vision cannot just be a vision of class warfare. It has to be a vision of a paradise toward which some ideals that uplift us are carrying us. How do we know this? Well, we know this from the example of lobsters, lizards, and puppy dogs. When lobsters, lizards, and puppy dogs get into a fight, it's all about breaking the laws of nature. He who can oppose nature the most. Nature loves those who oppose her the most. She really does. She loves those who break her laws. How do we know this? Again, when two lizards go up against each other, it's in a gravity-defying contest. What's nature's most basic law? The law of gravity. And lobsters go up against each other to see who can break that law the most effectively. And the lobster who gets his torso and his head up the highest wins the contest. There is a radical neurohormonal reward for the lobster who's able to look the highest, who is able to rise the highest. Serotonin in his system is interpreted by a bunch of new neurotransmitters as a hormone of triumph, of victory, of magnificence. He walks around erect. He is taller than anybody else around. He gets to basically knock on the door of each of the subordinate lobsters at night and challenge them all over again and humiliate them all over again. Serotonin in those who look down, in the losers, has absolutely the opposite effect. They slump. They stay as low to the ground as possible. They are humble and humiliated. Height lifts. Height lifts the human spirits. Height lifts the hormones that in turn lift the human spirits. A person, the same thing happens in lizards. The lizard who can break the law of gravity the most, who can rise the highest, who can look to the skies the most effectively, wins in showdowns between two lizards. And you can see how the hormones of confidence and triumph treat the body of the winning lizard. First of all, you can see it in his behavior. He goes to the highest thing around. He goes to the top of a stick. He goes to the top of the highest hill. And like the Lion King, he's the master of all he surveys. His body turns bright green. That's because of the hormones of victory, of triumph. But the lobster who can't get it up, the lobster who cannot defy gravity, the lobster who cannot look up and rise to the skies the most effectively, goes into a literal slump. He crawls around as close to the ground as possible, and you can see that his hormones are killing him because his body is not a bright green. It is a miserable brown. And sometimes within the first 2 weeks after a contest, the losing lobster actually dies. What kills him? His own internal chemicals. If you can give a nation the feeling that it is lifting its eyes to the skies, that it is moving toward a prize that will benefit not just itself but all of humanity, it will change the nature of human life in some profound way, like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness once upon a time lifted us toward a future goal that made us feel like we could liberate all of humanity, like all men are created equal. Once upon a time lifted us. If you can create a vision of that kind, you can change the hormonal structure of the individuals within the society. You can give them the kind of feeling of ebullience that unlocks their creative potential. If you can't give a vision of that kind, if you let the eco-nihilists, the eco-thinkers who are telling us that it's all doom and gloom, that we are a cancer on the planet, that we have eked out all of our resources, that we have tapped this place out, if you let those people, those who look down, who look consistently down. Take over. You will kill our spirit. You will kill the hormones on which that spirit rises. If you are as presidential candidate, one of the 20 running for office in this particular electoral season, you must have a vision. You must have it to save Western civilization. Look, we've been over this a number of times. What has Western civilization actually achieved? We are told by the eco-nihilists that we are the worst civilization in the history of mankind. Again, that we are a cancer on the planet and have tapped out its resources, that we are destroying the place. What have we actually accomplished? In the last 150 years, since 1850, we've more than doubled the human lifespan. We've increased it from 38.5 years to 78.5 years. In the last 115 years, we've increased the average IQ. The average dummy in the street today has an IQ that on a Stanford Binet IQ test from 1900 measures marginal genius, 135. That's 35 extra IQ points added to the average human being in the last 115 years. By what civilization? By this civilization. We are told we're the most violent in the history of mankind. Sorry, we are the very opposite. The rate of peace in the world is 10 times what it was in 1650, 10 times what it was in those wonderful indigenous societies that live at peace with each other, supposedly, and in harmony with nature, supposedly. In fact, we are the ones who live with the greatest harmony with each other. We have eco-movements that point out the limitations of what we're doing and get us to conserve rainforests and to conserve places like Yellowstone Park and spaces in Alaska, and get us concerned about what we're doing to the ocean so that someday we may reverse it. We have that. No other animal on the face of the planet has it. No other civilization in the history of the planet has ever had it. We've increased the average height by 4 inches. We have produced material miracles. We have to know that so that we can look up and take our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren far beyond where our great-grandparents ever took us. We need a presidential candidate with a vision that gets us to look up, a vision that lets us know we have achieved the equivalent of a paradise in the last 150 years. We have achieved things that would have taken the breath of our great-great-grandparents away. Now it's our task to achieve that for our great-great-grandkids, and we need a vision of how we're going to go about it. We need it from Bernie Sanders or Jeb Bush or from Hilary Clinton or whoever else wants to lead us, because we need to be led up. We need to be inspired. This is Howard the, again, a nation that looks up goes up. A nation that looks down goes down. This is Howard the Humongous speaking to you from the future. It's your job and my job to make, or want to know why, ask how. And now, because Cody the videographer is not here for that sneaky, insidious, slimy, absolutely impossible to find, invisible little off button. And I think I've got it.